Hiring salespeople, we are salespeople, and some of us are sales leaders. Trying to find those right talents and bring them on board is not always the easiest thing. On today's episode, we're going to break down and give you some ideas in an unusual setting or process of how you go about finding the right people to hire. You're going to love this. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I have a friend and an awesome guest. Her name is Cat Hutchings. You should go ahead and connect with her. We knew each other from back in college. Big shout out to Deborah for introducing us, and also Mr. Beastman, Cat's husband. We all knew each other in college, and it's cool to see how all of our paths and journeys are where it's taken us. Cat she started doing some businesses in college and working on something, and it grew to the point where she is one of the number one sellers on Etsy. Let's back that up. She's one of the top 1% of sellers on Etsy. There we go. I got that right, Kat. And she's just doing some cool things. She has 2 businesses, and now she's spinning up a 3rd business. And we had a conversation, and she was like, Donald, I want to get some questions answered. And I was answering them. And she's like, what if we did this in an episode? Because there's other people who could benefit from it. And I was like, it's a great idea. So it's almost like a coaching session / question asking session, where Kat's not a lot of coaching here, but I'm just giving her ideas and advice, and Kat's asking some questions that could best help her, and almost like a reverse interview per se. But check it out. Check out some of her information down below. I'm super excited for Kat and what she's doing. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, please subscribe. This show is designed to help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline and help you to double your close rate. Whether it's our free content or our paid courseware, we want you to take advantage of those. Whether it's our LinkedIn or a prospecting course, we can help you out, or our sales mastermind. Let's go ahead and dive into the episode, get a chance to hear about Kat and the business. And yes, there's a little bit of edits here. You probably see a little head or two walking around. My little guy was here at the office with me today, recording for this episode. But let's go ahead and dive in. Kat, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Donald. You would not even believe. I promise you, of all the podcast interviews I've done, which have not been thousands, but I was most excited for this just because, of course, we have a little personal history and backstory, which is super fun in this industry, in business and things like that.
Yeah, and I bragged about that a little bit in a teaser, talking about how we knew each other in college.
Yes.
And all the fun stuff and fun times there. And I know you started doing some of your business way back then.
Yeah.
And that has morphed into growing to where it's at. And now you have like multiple business units.
Yeah. Correct. Yep. All correct. It's just, again, I have not kept in contact with nearly as many college friends as I should have. So this has been really awesome that we found some college ground and kind of like reconnected. I know we've been popping in and out of each other's, LinkedIn's and Instagram and stuff like that over the years, but.
So Kat, tell us a little bit more about your business and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So I started, it's been about 13 years now. So again, this was all just kind of getting ready to graduate, just got engaged, different stuff happening so long ago. But I took an entrepreneurship class at college, and I thought I was going to be doing something else, wanted to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. So my husband was a business manager or a business major. And I was like, look, we're getting married. If you ever want to start a business, let me go ahead and just minor in business. I hadn't done my minor yet. And then I can help you maybe keep some books or something. So I took, I minored in business. I ended up taking this entrepreneurship class, and you had to do a business plan. And so I was like, okay, well, it might as well be, if I'm going to spend all this time doing it, maybe it could be something that I actually maybe do someday. And so I finally landed on, back in the day, it was all like makeup. And well, I'm still obviously into fun jewelry and accessories, but I was like, I'm going to start, maybe I could start a jewelry business. So I started making stuff and, kind of selling it around campus. I think if you remember, you remember IBC with the business? I think I did some stuff with them trying to sell some earrings and different things. So my sister-in-law finds out, and she was like, you should sell on Etsy. And I go, what's Etsy? Hadn't even heard of it back then. Nobody had. So
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I check it out, I take some pictures, I list some stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it actually sold. I got to package this up, figure this out. Like it was such a thrilling feeling. I had no expectations or anything, which in hindsight really served me well. Was also very difficult because I didn't approach it from actually building a business. And so I had to go back and fix a lot of things and just, inventory
Mm.
management, building a team. Like none of that was even on my radar. It was just like buying beads, learning how to do this, selling them. This is so fun and exciting. So I just started doing that. And we both graduated. He got his fancy corporate job out here. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get like a waitressing job and keep playing with this online business thing I'm doing. I had just become like enamored with it. It was at that, again, we didn't have any kids. I was working like 70 hours a week, just grinding it out, just like, so like, I'm going to get this, reading all the blogs. What's SEO? How do I take my photos? Like, so I had no idea that business was actually in my blood and entrepreneurship is like where my heart lies. So that's how it started. Now it has grown. I actually have 2 shops, still primarily on Etsy. We've started wholesaling as well, so you can buy my stuff in boutiques and things. But then just a month ago, I finally got a brand new I started another jewelry company. It's its own website. It was almost like the way I looked at it. Like, look, this Etsy empire I built, I have a team. It's all running. I've got systems. It's beautiful. It's awesome. I love it. But let's see if I can take all of those pieces of what I've learned over 12 years and actually put it into this new business with the intention of scaling it, of selling it, of actually making it a
Mm.
known brand, not just like, oh, where'd you get those earrings? Oh, I got them on Etsy. No, you didn't. You got them from Spotlight Jewelry.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
so here
love
we
this.
are. That's what we're doing.
Congratulations on that, Catherine. It's just so fun and exciting. It gets you're one of those individuals someone talk to and it just gets it get pumped up. It's infectious.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why I joked with you, Donald. You ended up landing in the sales world, but I'm like, I feel like I am just a natural hype. Like I don't even try. It's just something I love. If I love it, I am like
yeah.
all in. It doesn't matter if it's my thing, your thing. I'm going to tell everyone. I just get really excited about things in life. So that's why I think it's cool. I do love sales and really, respect the industry because that's exactly what it's about. I know, like you said, you posted about it recently, but when you get a salesperson who is really believes in what they're selling and how it can help other humans and people, like that's when kind of like that magic starts to happen.
Oh, that's the exciting part, and it's really phenomenal. I want to go into this interview today. It's a little bit different than one of our typical interviews.
You
What we're
bet.
doing as you are launching this, Kat asked me a couple of questions, and then she was like, "Why don't we just do this in a episode?" And I was like, "That sounds pretty cool." So we built this episode out, and in the sense that it's a coaching session. So you guys get a live coaching session. It's going
Yes.
to be around sales and entrepreneurship, but specifically around hiring salespeople, what to look for, and some of the things that Catherine is going through as she is evaluating individuals. So you'll hear some honest feedback. So it's almost like a reverse interview, but kind of like a coaching feedback insight here. So Kat, let's dive in and let's start talking about this. Your business. You're looking to hire your first salesperson, correct?
For sure. So far in my business, that's never been a really big part of it. It's all been because I was selling specifically on marketplaces, it was much more SEO driven, great photos, great reviews, great customer service. Like we got all of that down pretty good. But by and large, the customers, they'd search in the things, find our stuff, buy it. So it wasn't like we were having to outreach a lot. Now, with this new business, I'm thinking specifically kind of like the wholesale piece. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, instead of just waiting for them to find me and come to me, when we're trying to get people to purchase our jewelry to sell it in their stores or things like that, I feel like that's where kind of more like a sales professional would come in. I don't know. Is that an agency? Is that, just kind of like a single person on my team starting out? What does that actually look like? Because, as entrepreneurs, I'm like, I love sales and I'm good at it. I'm like, I might keep doing it for a little bit, but eventually, scaling, stepping out of the business more, it's like I feel like that will be something that I need to kind of like hand off in some capacity.
Yeah, I feel as an entrepreneur, it's you're the best salesperson, and you're going to be the best salesperson for the organization, no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter who you have on board, you're always going to be the best sales professional. It's your baby, it's your drive, it's your
Mm-hmm.
passion, and a founder and entrepreneur is able to do something in or able to articulate stuff so much more effective than a salesperson, an individual contributor that's going to do that. And oftentimes what I find is, because if something goes like this has to work for
Yeah.
you, like it's not like, oh, if I don't get it, let me go get another job. It's
Yeah.
like, no, this is your business. There, people depend on you, so you're going to make it happen. And I think for those reasons, plus you understand more about it, it makes you a little bit more effective as the seller
Sure.
in this capacity. So one of the things, though, like I want you to, think about as you go looking at the salesperson, and yeah, in this whole sales game, and that's one of the first thing I ask is the why. You're trying to get to those wholesalers, and you're
Hmm.
trying to get to them. Yeah, you need to do some outreach, but in order to be able to, before you can hand it off, I think it's beneficial for you to be able to understand the process and for you to know it
Yeah.
before you bring someone into the organization. That's what I would say is,
Absolutely.
no matter who they are, you need to have a system that they could follow when it comes to the sales. So
Yeah.
the sales process, the messaging that works, the tools, have those things set up. Because let's say you hire somebody and you're paying them whatever dollars you're paying them per year,
Hmm.
right? If you have that individual doing the work and trying to figure out those tools, essentially you're paying that person's salary to do that. And I
Yep.
feel that that's so less effective for you. So you want to make sure you have those systems in place so this person isn't wasting a lot of time, taking 3 months to do so. They're already going to need a ramp time,
Yeah.
whether that's like a month to 2 months before they start really, depending on the experience, bringing some money for you. But if they're trying to figure out systems and trying to figure out process and figure out what's work, that could take up to like 3, 4, 6 months, and that's just a waste of money at that time.
That's
So
great.
that's the first thing I share. So then go back to so hopefully that gives you an idea
Yep.
about bringing that individual on in the first place. But then let's go back into that question of, I think the question was more about, what should you look for in that person?
Yeah, it was kind of like, would is it better to just
Yeah.
hire someone for my business and like, hey, you work for Wonderlight, you are our
Yeah.
sales manager? Or at this stage, like, do I go to an agency and say, hey, you guys, I'm going to pay you to get us leads for these wholesale accounts,
Yeah. So getting the leads, I don't think that's a big deal nowadays. So you don't need to pay somebody to do that. You can use tools like Apollo.io.
Mm-hmm.
You can use Zoom Info. And what those are, I mean, there's a databases of the leads of individuals that potentially could be interested in your services. But you don't need to go and pay offshore companies to find those leads
Okay.
anymore. But I would definitely sign up for Apollo.io and get their free version, and then you can start testing it out from there, and then go for the paid version, a little bit deep. Go for the paid version. So when it comes down to it, like, should you do an agency? Should you do an individual? You don't need an agency to find the leads. You can use tools like Apollo.io, and that's a great software. You can use their free version, but it gives you really good data from what I've seen. And then you can get the paid version. It's not that it's inexpensive in comparison to a lot that's out there, and for the quality, it's pretty great. But it gives you the contacts, the names, the email addresses of these organizations, and you can set up sequences to start emailing them. And this is one of those things that I would say you want to make sure you have set up in place before, again,
Okay.
that process, so that this person knows when to come in, say, this is how you find wholesale clients.
Yeah.
So pull up Apollo, show them how to do that.
Got
They
it.
can pull it up, have those email sequences, the script as far as the messaging when it comes towards reaching out to them via phone,
Mm-hmm.
giving them some ideas so they can have a blueprint. Like, here's the pain point that typically these manufacturers have. The reason I'm reaching out to you, I know a lot of manufacturers looking for keyword type jewelry that's going to actually sell
Yeah.
in this economy. We have stuff that's inexpensive, but it's luxurious in looks or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Love to share with you some ideas on that. But you're
Donald, you're
understanding that
hired.
beverage. Let's go.
Let's go sell some jewelry.
Let's go sell jewelry to some wholesalers. But it gives them an idea, though, of what they can say. And as far as the individual, you can always use an outsource company. We've done this for several of our clients. It's not something that's advertised on our website,
Uh-huh.
but we with our team, we almost like mercenaries. We do it for probably a handful of companies where we do, and these folks are people that probably done like a long-term like consultant project with us, and they needed to build up their sales. So our team jump started that. So we did an outsourced project with them, and they have one or two of our BDRs that's starting to do their phone calls and doing the first step, fill in the funnel,
Mm-hmm.
and activities, and then they're closing, the actual CEO or the founder or someone on their teams closing those deals. But you can do that type of work, and you can find those organizations. In your case, what I would say is, if you can find an industry individual that is a full cycle seller, because sometimes when you get the experienced salespeople, some of them that will say, they probably they're great at closing, they're great at the last part of the process, but they suck at helping to generate net new business, meaning like they haven't prospected in years, they haven't sent out, done a cold call, they haven't reached out to anyone, they just got opportunities and they got inbound or whatever, and they closed the deals. But the idea behind doing the outreach and sourcing them through like Apollo or using LinkedIn to be able to engage people and to guide them through the whole process. You want to see if somebody has a full cycle experience,
Cool.
that can do that, and not just, I can just close the deal.
Yeah.
Because at this stage, it's, as a small organization like you need someone that's going to be in the trenches. My view, I would find someone, maybe they're not like they're not on their last mile, finishing up their career, but I don't want somebody maybe that's like, is totally brand new that I have to dedicate a whole bunch of training to.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody like maybe, Goldilocks zone, they're young enough that they're coachable and willing to learn, and but they have some experience, whether it's through maybe a year or two or a year doing something. They understand the form that they can be coached into doing it. Or maybe somebody with a middle of their career, maybe a few years that they've done this, in industry,
Yeah.
in the wholesale industry, so they can come with some of that surpass some of that learning curve when it comes to reaching out to the wholesale partners. But that individual could be a great fit for your organization, that they can mature into maybe a more senior position, and then eventually take on the leadership of the sales team
Yeah.
and help you to be able to source new people that can come through the process,
Yeah.
through the system like that.
I love that. That's great. I mean, that's kind of the magic. Again, I know not everyone in your audience is in this world, but you get into kind of like the startup area, and it's like you can come in so early when the team is so small and really kind of like have the opportunity to own that. So, I could bring in this person, get those systems and processes in place. They have some experience, maybe not a ton. And as they continue to learn and grow, it's like they can almost like start building their own team and, just kind of go from there.
Yeah. The way I've seen it before too is, I've seen organizations where they bring on the BDR, like, again, smaller organizations, they bring on a BDR and they work with the founders closing the deals. BDR becomes the account executives where there's full cycle, but then they also find another BDR or two. That's one of the things you want to look at, is when it gets to the point, you want to see if you can hire in classes. And the reason is, just like the nature, sometimes when you see like, like little ducklings out there, the duckling have like, the mom has like 10 ducklings, but Darwin's theory come in place in there, and some of them get eaten, and
Yeah.
now she ends up with 5 or ducklings. But those two, mature into adulthood. And the same concept when it comes to salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you find that your junior seller, they don't all last. Maybe they find another gig, or it's just too challenging.
Yeah.
But when you bring on BDRs, we like to think about, or encourage people to bring them on in classes. It just helps them to also to be able to help each other, and to be a little bit more, to help you to have that system. I mean, like multiple people that they can feed off of each other and help
Yeah.
each other. And then again, if somebody does leave, you're not left out. Well, now you start all over, but you had 2 or 3 of them that
Yeah,
you brought on.
that's such a
So
good idea. It sounds like, geez,
yeah.
you guys are in a rough profession here. They're just like, sorry, bottom of the pool, you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's just that sometimes that they may not necessarily work out, or they relieve themselves from payroll. Like they just feel like it's not for them,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to do it. The interview process will help with that. But sometimes people, things, the lives change, or things change in their life, or just realize, yeah, I've done this for a couple of years, but sales is not my thing, and I
Yeah.
want to look for something a little bit more secure. I don't like this. So you have multiple, anything can happen, but when you have multiple individuals that you're bringing on, it just allows for that to not be too big of an issue.
Cool. I like it. BDR, hiring classes. Got it.
So yeah, hopefully that answers that part when it comes to the hiring. And then obviously, if you have if you have investor money at that point, yeah, you can hire, like, more than that.
Yeah, that's a
Hire
really
a
good point.
couple account executives that right at the gate,
Yeah, yeah.
poach them from another company, and then you can hire 3 or 4 BDRs and a sales leader to help take care of that. But
Nice.
that's
Do you
pretty decent
do you
chunk of
have much?
change.
We didn't even get to talk about this. Have you had much experience with investors with your company thus far, or are you still all bootstrapped?
Yeah, we know investors. Sales Evangelist has been from the pockets
Yeah, that's
from the start.
that's how Spotlight Jewelry's been over the past 12
Yeah.
years. I just bootstrapped, grassroots, everything. But this new company, I'm like, there's definitely some investor possibility, just with the scale
Yeah.
and the runway, the time, just to kind of speed up that process a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I'm in the top 1% of all Etsy sellers. I've got the team, but it
Oh,
took
come
me,
on.
it took
Yeah.
me a decade to get here all on my own, not knowing anything. Like,
Yeah, with all of that, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you could look at some investors. If you get an investor, then they may be able to. Some of them will have their their like their go-to folks they might work with. Like, say, here's a place where you can hire some of the sellers,
yeah.
or they may even say, yes, farm it out through this company.
Mm-hmm.
We've done some stuff with them, and they'll do the first part of the sales process, and outsource that portion for it as well. But I would say, if if you don't have that, those are some of the things that I've seen to be able to help with what I explained already.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, cool. I know you had a couple more questions. Let's go through those, and we can continue to give some insights on
Yeah,
that.
you bet. These are my questiones I was thinking about. Okay, so this one was interesting. I ran across, so I get, still, even at my size, I get approached a decent amount in my industry from people wanting to sell me different services or products or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those are just kind of like cold calls on LinkedIn. We don't even need to talk about that because we know how pointless and just frustrating it is for me. And I'm like, how are people still thinking this is working? But whatever. There was someone, though, that recently did catch my attention. And the main thing was they actually, and I'm like, it seems so easy to me, but like 90% of the people that contact me don't even bother to do it. But he actually knew about my business. He had done his just the tiniest bit of homework where he was like, hey, I see you're mostly on Etsy. I help people get off of Etsy onto their own site. And I'm like, great.
Come
That's
on.
something I've been thinking about doing. Let's have a conversation. So anyways, we're going through telling me what he does. Awesome. I can tell. I mean, he's a little bit younger, but the kid knows his sales. He knows business. I'm like super like props to him for having the hustle. But I finally get to the point where I'm like, do you have any examples of people you've worked with or client? And I'm like, if you don't, that's okay. We can still have this conversation. But I think we need to talk about the price a little bit more then, because I'm happy to let you use me as your first trial. But really, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have people, but because of confidentiality, I can't reveal them. And I was just like, that was almost like a stop point for me. I'm like, you've got to have some social
Yeah.
proof. Is that a realistic ask for me when I'm talking to some of these salespeople or organizations?
Yeah. So there's a couple things that he did that I want to point out that was good, and then the things that I feel that you could feedback to him, and then also to answer that question. The first part is absolutely, like, he did the reason why it worked is because of one word, and that was relevance.
Mm-hmm.
It was relevant to you.
Yep.
Most times, the individuals that are doing the outreach, they're not looking at people that are relevant to them. They look at people who potentially
Mm-hmm.
could fit a mold that they have. So the relevant factor comes in when you do a little bit more deeper research, and you can hire someone, offshores to do that, where they look at the company, go a little bit deeper into Apollo,
Mm-hmm.
or even use tools like Crunchbase to be able to find, but in this case, manufacturers, but find the people that would more than likely have the pain that you have. Are there signals that they have the pain? So in this guy's case, he probably looked and see, there's probably a tool that tell you how long someone's been on Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably like, anyone that's been on Etsy for more than 7 years,
Yep.
and they have more than, X amount of reviews.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect example. Then have somebody go search. Do they have a website?
Yep.
Can't find a domain with that name. Perfect. So that's the triggers. Now, if you've been on Etsy for that long, there's a high possibility that you probably want to go off on your own and you do that. So that's why the messaging worked so well for you. And that it's not that complicated with triggers. Everybody has a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Identify what's the main problem of your ideal customers, and then look for triggers or signals that somebody have that problem. So if I'm let's just be silly here. If I'm a doctor, podiatrist, and I see a bunch of people walking around and they're limping and they're in their 40s, maybe they're probably good candidates for the surgery that I can have for their ankles. I'm not going to go reach out to a bunch of 20-year-old and say let's do this, or 89-year-old and say let's do surgery. That's just not going to work. Could they benefit from it? Probably, but it just doesn't quite make sense for them. So the concept is identify people that may have the pains or the triggers that are visible, and those visibility will take research to be able to find that, thus making that outreach message way more relevant, and it's going to be relevant to the individual as well. So anyway, so relevance is that key. I've been on that kick for a while.
Yep.
Maybe that's the next book.
I love it.
But so that's where I would say. And then the piece as far as what this dude was talking about, I get where I can see where he may be coming from with confidentiality. If these people were, if it's depending on the stage of the process that you're in, but either way, if you've done a good enough of a job, like, you should be able to have some social proof on it's on your website. That's not a hard ask to for somebody. And I just don't see why he's not doing that. The only reason is probably just don't have many of them, or he probably don't have many of them that had great results after leaving. So that would be a red flag for me out the gate.
Cool.
But if they have that messaging, then I would say, yeah, you've clearly done that. Show me. And sometimes it's annoying from a sales rep standpoint, where if everyone you met with, you reach out to, say they want to talk to one of your clients, that would be, it becomes arduous and it becomes challenging, because the clients will get annoyed by that. However, just saying the names, check out Donald's hats. They were on Etsy, and now check out their website here. We work with them. And also check out Mike's Bling. We help them, and check out Lisa's pillows and how we helped her to get out those websites. We built those websites and we created them so that they can have the Shopify backend and to be able to run oh, cool. But you got to have some kind of proof, some kind of proof that to substantiate what you're doing. Maybe later in the sales process, when we get to the point where you're like, Donald, and we're getting ready to sign a X amount of dollar contract with you, it'd be great if I can just speak to someone. At that point, might say, cool, I have some testimonials and I have some videos that you can share, and I can reach out to one of them and see. But if you're signing a decent sized contract, at that point, just eliminating risk at that point. So
I like the video testimonial. I feel like we'll have, I would never, but I'm like, we'll send him the episode and he can watch it and learn.
Yeah, for sure. Because what I do whenever I find someone when I have relevance, if they're reaching out to me, I go to their YouTube channel and I look and see if they have any content or any of their website and see if there's any videos there, because that just helps to be able to give me a visual demo. I don't necessarily need to talk to someone for an hour to get a good quick demo. Pique my interest enough in the demo, then it's like, all right, let me book an appointment from there. So
awesome. All right, you want to keep going?
Let's keep going. Let's get a couple more of these questions.
Okay.
Hopefully this has been helping you. If it has been, please go ahead and let us know on LinkedIn. I want you to go ahead and connect with Kat, and you can find her details in the show notes as well. Let's keep continuing.
Yeah, for sure. I love connections, are some of my favorite pieces of business. Like, I don't know if I would stay in this industry if it wasn't all, for the fun stuff like this that we get to just network and, even though it's all different industries, it's all kind of this same similar vein. So please feel free to reach out.
I know one of our clients, you probably get a call from them.
That sounds great.
because
I'm
they
happy to talk to anyone about anything. I mean, I still love, like, if you go to my cathutchings.com, I actually do still, for a little while, that'll probably go away in the next little bit, but consultations with other Etsy sellers to learn how to grow
Mhm.
their businesses and the stuff we're doing. And so
Yeah,
it's all connected. Okay.
awesome.
So what kind of sales professionals expect? Oh, so if you're a sales professional, what do you think that's going to look like? And maybe we talked about this a little bit, like working
Sure.
for a startup compared to like a large organization. Like, I feel like most of your audience is probably with larger organizations. What do you think? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, for folks in our community, we get a variety. Probably say maybe that a lot of them are working for a mid-sized
Okay.
organization, and those. I mean, I think the reason why people like that is the stability.
Mm-hmm.
There's a risk when you go work with a startup.
For sure.
Just inherent risk. They don't have the process, don't have the system, and that's maybe big and proven. They don't have they just have not a lot of runway,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So there's some of that, and sometimes people like that. They like the assurance that, hey, this I know I'm in sales. However, I know you've been doing this for 20 years or 10 years or
Mm-hmm.
7 years, so I know you have some successes there. You have some proof, social proof on that, so it makes it easier for them to be able to thrive. So I think that's one of the challenges when it comes to startup. But however, on the other side to that, you find people who are just hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and I call that hungry.
I know, I got to
Like
find a
Brown would
young,
say.
scrappy, and hungry. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, they're hungry and they want to do something. Or perhaps people that have the experience, they've worked in the corporate arena, and maybe they're again there for, a few years, and they're like, you know what, I want to go try something new. I want to go take this. I've been safe, and I want to go try something and help develop and build something. And that's what the startup culture is. You need people who want to build. They probably want to
Yes.
build their resume as well. And they're like, I've done this for 3 years in the manufacturing industry and in the wholesale arena. I know I can probably be a really good seller in a smaller organization. I'd be a big fish in a small pond,
Uh-huh.
and I can get leadership potential, and I can help develop something and grow that and put it on my resume that I worked in corporate, but now I help to grow a startup to whatever, you know 10 million ARR.
Yep.
um, and that's awesome for their next big step into higher gain. So it could be you could see some of those as well. And there's people who just don't like the big companies. They feel like it's you have no character, and
Mm-hmm.
but you find folks who are like, I want to make an impact, and I can see that impact when I work in a smaller organization. Yes, there's a risk, but I can see that you've done this twice already in e-commerce. So that's your social proof, and it's
Yep.
like now I'm doing this in with the sales rep.
Mm-hmm.
We're protected on that front as well, and it's not a whimsical idea. It's something that's proven that could work. And so I think that will attract certain type of folks as well.
Okay. I
To it.
love
So
it.
I wouldn't feel that you're totally out, you're fish out of water, that you can't find someone. You just have to you find the right people.
Yeah. Well, and I think like what you said, to your point too, Donald, and it's interesting that you brought this up in just the sales realm, because this is definitely something that I have been learning and finally getting. I've been doing this for so long, but this concept of systems and processes, I did it almost without knowing I was doing it with my first Etsy shop with the spotlight jewelry, and it like took off, but I didn't even at that time attribute to, because again, it was a correlation. It's like, oh, COVID was kind of happening, so
Yeah.
sales exploded anyways. But my team literally that year, they were like, we love you. We love everything that we're doing here. But if you don't fix this, we're all quitting, because our
Mm.
Christmas that year of COVID was so insane, because I just was not, it was always just like, oh, well, you work on this and you work on, and now we actually have like a sauna and task and repeating
Yes.
things. And
Come
it's like a
on.
whole like system, but to translate that. And so now it's like, we're still working on our SOPs and our playbook, because I'm like, that's where the gold is. Like everything, like my team right now, it's like everything they're doing, it's like, okay, keep doing that. Your next priority though is to document everything you're doing and how you're
Yeah.
doing it. That way, if you ever need to move to another role, it's so much easier for me to fill that position and what you're doing. So with the sales, that absolutely makes sense that I would maybe go in there at first and be like, okay, here's what I've done. Here's at least a baseline of some systems and processes. This is how we get the leads. Then this is how we do the follow-ups. And now I can hand that over to a professional to help,
Yeah.
and, and they can keep help growing that or whatever.
And they'll refine it. They'll look at it and say,
Exactly.
here's some things tweaks that I would make. Yeah, but it's easier to be able to watch something that's running and to fix it than to redo a whole entire process from scratch.
Yep.
That's just it's more expensive. And look at the bigger companies out there. The big companies, they don't necessarily reinvent a company. If they find a new unit of a business that they need, they'll go buy a business. Same idea. Don't reinvent it. Have the process so that you don't have to build it all from scratch. But if somebody comes in, they can reinvent or tweak that process a little bit and make it more efficient.
Yeah, I love it. If nothing else, like, who knows, maybe your audience is going to be like all those mid-sized companies, sellers. Will just plant that seed in the back of your mind. Like, maybe a startup Sunday would be like a fun thing for me to try and do. I love entrepreneurship. So get in the startup world whenever you can at some point. It's super fun, challenging.
But the rewards are there too, because in a company like your size, even though they may not necessarily get a lot of big dollars, like going to working for a big nameless corporation,
Yep.
they have the rewards are there because you'll probably share more at this stage, right?
Oh, for sure.
There's bonuses, there's sales targets you hit, there's opportunities to get the team together more, there's different levels of success that you can obtain at this size of the organization, or maybe a little bit not so. Again, big fish in a small pond, you can't get in some of the other orgs. So
yeah.
And it's fun to build, and it's like they may be able. You find sellers sometimes that want to be entrepreneurs, being a part of being an entrepreneur within a system.
Yep.
And this is a great way.
I love that you even named it that. That's one of the people I'm working with now. She's been with me for years and years and years. And that's exactly like with this new company specifically, we're trying to pull her over as much as possible, but that's exactly how she views it, as an entrepreneur. She's like, I have no desire to start my own thing. That sounds terrible, but I love building this with you. Is super exciting. You can just take all the risk and do all the crazy, and
I'll follow you.
Yeah.
But I ain't doing it.
Exactly. She'll follow me off the cliff. She won't jump first. Smart girl. Clever girl. All right.
I'll land on you.
She's awesome, though. Katie's great. So I feel like this would segue really well. B2B versus B2C. Tell me just real quick. I would love to hear your Donald Kelly brain sales world of what that looks like, what the difference is, why people, some, land here and some land over here.
Yeah, I think B2C is they both have their challenges. I did door-to-door security sales, and that was straight B2C. You're selling to a homeowner. You have 45 minutes on the doorstep to close a deal, and that's a sales cycle, 45 minutes. As opposed to I've worked where we had 45 days or 45 months in sales processes that takes a lot longer when you work to some of these larger enterprise level deals or larger accounts. The B2C game is individuals selling to a consumer. With the products that you have, a lot of your stuff in the B2C came, and you didn't need a salesperson per se for that.
Exactly.
From Etsy. And so some products you don't need that, because the cost of a salesperson to selling one item to a business, to a consumer, is like that cost it just doesn't make sense at all. Just way too far. We're not calling into people's homes anymore and so forth. So then it eliminates a lot of the need. A lot of stuff can be remote. It can be done automatically. Thus, people want to do on demand, like asynchronous, where we can go onto a website and we can buy independent of a seller. But I may have questions, and those are typically inbound, where you may have people who want to get a little bit more further questions asked, answered, and so forth. Again, it depends on price point if it makes sense. So the business to consumer is that you have certain items that make sense for business to consumer, but a lot of that, their prospecting is really on like an inbound, we wait for it type of approach. Or so like, say for instance, you have even accountants. that may, well, not so much accountants. Yeah, accountants like H&R Block, but a business consumer sale. In that process, now you have where a lot of it just doesn't require salesperson, but like something where you're looking at, like if an accountant to an individual at companies like H&R Block, they'd focus a lot on the, on the marketing front to
Yeah.
help bring people to have interest. That, again, the only part that I see the B2C is where a salesperson might be needed, where the ticket price is maybe a little bit larger and the individual wants to speak to someone to get an assurance.
Yeah.
But again, on that side is inbound. The B2B side is fair game. Like I feel the price points tend to be a little bit higher in the B2B game. It you have the businesses reaching out to a business. You can utilize platforms where you can get a hold of individuals like a LinkedIn, for instance, where it's more publicly, acceptable for someone to connect and to, nurture and to network, rather than on Facebook. It's like
Hmm.
my private sanctuary where, but somebody's hit me up in a DM trying to sell me like perfume. It's not going to necessarily be as exciting.
Yeah.
But Facebook ads, I see the ads and I might go to the website. Again, business consumer, I can do that by myself. But a B2B game, I feel that where you're selling to a business, you have way more chances to get in touch with someone,
Hmm.
and it's more acceptable for you to be able to do that. I
Yeah.
accept the fact that you can call me in my business or send me an email or reach out to my business to try to sell to me.
Yeah.
And then if I'm not the relevancy factor, if I'm when I do it from TSC and if we're reaching out to a mid-sized level organization, we will reach out to maybe 3 people in the sales org that has that help that we can reach out to. For a small business, your CEO is probably part of that outreach process. So we have
Hmm.
several individuals that we reach out to in the business that we can connect with and start having a professional relationship. um, in my view, I think a B2B again tend to have bigger dollars, so I like that.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the business world cater to the B2B sales, so there's a lot of tools to be able to help with that as well, as opposed to business to consumer sale. It's
Yeah.
not as catered to, like in the industry as much. I would say. But for those purposes, hopefully that gives a good idea of the differences
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
between
I
the two.
think, for
Yeah,
a long time, that's why, like this first business, people are like, oh, well, sales, sales. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, I don't even do, like, I don't have anyone on my sales team. Like, I don't have a sales team because it was just all, again, like internet SEO driven kind of like stuff like that. But
yeah,
now it's almost like just with technology and stuff, I almost feel like in some ways, like B2C, like there's like a sales person in B2C just doesn't make sense. And I think maybe that's why I sometimes get confused. And I don't know if you have any thoughts around
hmm,
this, but what is the difference? So I understand, like exactly like what you said with this new company specifically. I mean, we are actually doing wholesale with our other company, Spotlight Jewelry, as well. But with
yeah,
Wonderlight, my brand new company, I see that being a very big piece if I can get into more actual kind of like retail location. So that's again, though, that is okay. That's my business going to their business. So B2B,
hmm,
salespeople in place to kind of help facilitate that makes sense. So besides that piece, though, when I'm just looking at my business and kind of like the organization and structure, I feel like, especially for like an e-commerce brand, how does sales and marketing, are they the same thing? Are they not? That, you know what I mean? I just get like, what do you think, like when you hear
yeah.
that, what are your thoughts around like sales versus marketing?
In the smaller business, it's hard to see the difference. The lines get pretty blurred.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the marketing is the part of attracting and bringing people to that checkout. Sales is the part where they make that purchase
Okay.
transaction. And, so I'm on the website and yeah, marketing set all the stuff up, but the sale
Uh-huh.
actually happens and I make that purchase, and that's the sale.
Gotcha.
That you need to, obviously, but the marketing can take care of that whole process.
Right.
And you look at it I think business, the benefit here, business to consumer tend to be a little bit ahead
Mm-hmm.
of B2B in some instances.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the foot race. because most buyers, because we are individual consumers more so than we are buyers in a B2B setting. We buy from Amazon daily or weekly or multiple times, right? But we do that so often that we expect the B2B world to start catering in some instances towards that.
Yeah.
So in most companies, you see a title that's coming about, and bigger organizations have it. It's called a CRO.
Mm.
And I'm writing it out like I need to. But
Well, I'm
the
writing it down here.
the chief revenue officer, and the chief revenue officer deals with all of that blur there over revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So that is sales and that is marketing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and then you may have a C, like a somebody that's over sales, like a VP of sales and a VP of marketing.
Yeah.
And they do their functions even in a B2B world. But the goal and the idea is that we all work together to bring revenue in. So on a B2, a business to consumer sale, the transaction takes place so quickly and it's so small or a micro scale that you don't necessarily need the individual. But on a B2B scale, can I get more marketing and sales work together where we get more of the targeting outreach to those ideal wholesalers that has relevance? Marketing helps to do the groundwork for that, and then sales may reach out to those companies because marketing has the ads going. They probably have like the email marketing components going. They have the blogs that are attracting the right people, and attracting those folks. They have things that are posting on LinkedIn and running LinkedIn ads that's making your company a little bit more up in people's feed. And then the salespeople are doing the outreach and reaching out to them and making contacts and communicating, and both trying to drive them to that goal, to that endpoint where they actually make that transactional purchase. But there's a clearer handoff in those instances where marketing gets them to the table, sales, and maybe even show the demo on the YouTube videos, and then salespeople might get a chance to, when they reach out, because it's so relevant now, have a chance to have that one-on-one conversation. Because the sales process is so much longer, they may want to be able to have that sales reps help them to understand the complexity. And then also, even in that vein, like the marketing side is being pushed even further. Like the first meeting, do I really need multiple meetings? Can that video help me to solve answer some of my questions, that the salesperson can come in later in that process, and I can talk to the salesperson when I need that help. And so all of that falls underneath the CRO in that process. But again, in your case, where your marketing may not be as robust yet, the salesperson has to do a lot of that outreach early on in the process to be able to get those wholesalers to be able to come to the table and have interest, and to get to the point where they're willing to make a investment with you.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes me, again, I'm like, am I just missing something? This seems really confusing.
No, hopefully that was clear as mud.
Yes. like everything in business is, right?
Oh, I tell you all the time, right?
Oh gosh.
But it's the repetition. But if I were you and I was in that case, yeah, I would run a motion of, you've done some stuff with wholesalers before. If you can track some of them, do your SEO juice. Use your whatever tools you have to figure out what are some of those keywords that you should be writing content around that attracts those ideal people, and then looking at ways that you can go out and have your salespeople reach out to them and start making connection. I mean, there's tools that help you to see, if you're probably going to take 6 months to be able to get the juice to the website.
Oh yeah.
So I probably wouldn't wait that long to, before I do outreach. However, there are tools that you could take advantage of in the business world that are, one of the companies out there is called 6 Sense. You also have a little pricey, so I'll just tell you that. But it's worth the investment if you can get the results. Lead Data, I believe, is the one of the other companies that are out there. And then you also have brands like Zoom Info and Apollo even have a feature, the intent. It's not, I love Apollo, but that piece is not that perfect yet. But it gives you intent. Who are people that are people? It doesn't give you the exact individuals, but it gives you the IPO for the companies, that these companies are maybe searching for things relevant to jewelry manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
So then now you know, somebody from that company searched for that keyword or whatnot over the past 6 months, past 10 days, or
Huh.
depending on the features. So then you can start to make your guesses, like who would be searching for that in that organization. And if they're looking at social platforms, it just gives you certain triggers. So you might say, all right, I'm going to take a stab at it. It may be the CMO over the person that, or over the buyer over jewelry.
Yeah.
So let me reach out to that person and make a introduction or whatnot.
Wow, that's cool. I had
Yeah.
no idea. Again, maybe this is like 101 for all of your listeners, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that's kind of creepy, but amazing that you can do that.
Yeah. But again, you don't know who. Don't give you the data who. They give you, like, again, the companies. And this is where some of those dark funnel come in place. Like, funnels that you, just like the back end funnels, using data on the back ends to understand and see. Yeah. So
Awesome.
crazy out there, but those are some of the things that you can look at, and you can build your sales pipeline. I mean, your sales process, and more than willing to give feedback as you start working on that, and some of the tech tools that you can take advantage of as well.
You're for sure. I'm going to already have to go back. You were just like, and here's your first sentence. Like, I don't know. I think we were recording when you were doing that.
I think we were. So we can fine tune that. I was just spitballing something.
I love it, Donald. You've always been. I think it's so cool. You are this sales evangelist, but when I think back to now you've like trademarked it and made it, but I'm like, you've kind of always been the sales evangelist. I know that wasn't, I don't think, like, when you didn't start this in college, did you?
No.
Yeah.
It was post school. Started playing with that. So.
But I still feel like you're the exact, like, this is the persona. It always has been Donald Kelly. So I'm just glad you trademarked it and you're like owning it.
Thank you, Kat. Yeah, it's been and I think it goes back to what you said about yourself at the top. Something that you love, something that you like, you could talk about it. And sales has been one of those things, whether it's from the little side hustles that I did do in college to where we are now. Like, it's something that I find fun and fascinating, and I like to evangelize what's working and help other people in that process. As a natural byproduct from that, we get benefited from it, get revenue from it. So it works out perfect.
Love it.
So, Kat, one thing you took away from this episode, this session that you're going to take and apply, that's going to help your sales.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest thing offhand for me is just reiterating that systems and processes, because I'm at this funny stage of my business as I'm a startup and a founder, but at the same time, this is my second business. And so I have a lot more capital and resources. And so sometimes I fall into that trap of wanting to throw money at the problem instead of actually grinding it out, so to speak. And I feel like when you're first starting a company, like, I need to take the time. And people tell me this, I never quite looked at it from the exact, like, this sales piece. I was like, oh no, I'm just going to go hire a salesperson and they're going to just do that. I'm like, no, it's really good advice to still get in there. What does that process look like? What are we saying? What are we doing? What is the follow through? Where does it land? Its own little, like, system and funnel. That's something I probably need to just get in there, do it, like the 10 other things on my list. But I'm happy to add that to it, because I think in the long run, that is going to be what's going to set it up. So I was like, Donald, just tell me I could just pay someone and make it go away.
You can pay a consultant. They'll charge some time.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's just going to be more cost effective. And there is definitely, like, as great as this business is, I'm like, I do have a runway. At some point, my husband's looking at me like, okay, so what's going on with this new business?
We're burning funding here.
Exactly. But it's part of the game. I'm going to play for life.
Yeah. But it's awesome, and I'm really pumped for you. And even if folks, as you are listening to this, hopefully you got some insight from it that can help you. Go ahead and still connect with Catherine as well, and see if maybe some of the things that she's offering could benefit someone in your life, or you, some of the jewelry that she has as well. And maybe a wholesaler that you can introduce her to that could be of interest in that. So we have a link down below so you can get see some of the Cat's stuff, and see if those can be able to help you or help somebody else. So
thank you so much, Donald. This has been so much fun. And again, I hope someday, I don't know how it'll always come full circle, but who knows? I hope our paths continue to be able to connect and cross.
Of course, it definitely will. In speaking about crossing, if folks want to cross your path, where do they go to connect with you?
Oh, too many places. All right. You can definitely always get me on LinkedIn. I'm on there a decent amount. Just, send me a message. I have my cathutchings.com. There's a contact me on there as well. That's where I do some of the Etsy coaching right now. Eventually, I think I'll switch it over to like, hey, this is me as a founder or something. I don't know. But, and then I've started trying to be on LinkedIn. Instagram a little bit more. So Cat Hutchings on Instagram as well. You can get my DM there. So I'm pretty open. It's still a little bit small potatoes right now. So if you message me, I'm going to reach back out and say it. So happy to meet you and connect, whatever you're doing, wherever you are.
Well, we're pumped for that, Catherine. Again, excited for you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and for doing this session with us.
You bet. We'll be in touch always, Donald. You're awesome.
Hey, that was Cat Hutchings. If you haven't connected with her on LinkedIn as of yet or on Instagram, go ahead and do so. You can find her information and find her show or her stores on Etsy as well as on her website. I'm super grateful for Cat and for the insights that she brought today and the things that she shared and what she's doing and the concepts and the questions she asked. Not only is it going to benefit the leaders who are looking to hire the new sales rep, but it might benefit you as an individual contributor as you're looking for the type of roles that you want to get into. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and check out our sponsors because they have amazing things they're giving you. But also, please go ahead and leave us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to find podcasts. We are grateful to have you. The show is simple. We're here to help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline and to double your close rate. All of our shows, all of our cohorts, all of our training program, our masterminds are designed for that purpose. And if you want to find benefit for that, please go ahead and check it out in the show notes. As always, raise your level of thinking, go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.